I'm Reagan McLaughlin from Edmond, Oklahoma. I work in marketing and advertising and focus in graphic design and major motorsports marketing. My car passion started way back when I was a little kid. When I was probably 6 or 7, my grandparents used to live in essentially what was like a junkyard. My parents used to drop me off there, and I had the choice of kind of go through junkyard cars or stand out at this fence, and they lived right next to a tune shop, which they focused primarily on Mustangs. So when I was a little kid, I used to see these guys work on these Mustangs. I didn't know it was a Fox body at the time, but they would tune them, build them, and then run them down the road and run them back. And so all day I just got to sit at the fence and watch these fast Mustangs go there and back, and that kind of got my motorsports drive going, as well as my love for Fox bodies. What sparked my interest to build TimeFox goes back to my passion and love for the Fox body in general. I always said if I had $1 million in the bank, I could buy any exotic. The car I would buy would be a Fox body. In any condition, I just feel like I'm at home in one of those cars. I remember when I was a little kid watching them race up and down the street. So that will forever be my passion. So I've been lucky enough to own tons of Fox bodies through my life. In all variations, the limited ones, the good ones, the bad ones. And I've always had this idea that I wanted to build this Frankenstein car that just was wide body, crazy, Batmobile, black, loud, fast. And I've always had nice cars where cutting up a Fox body is not something that I really enjoyed to do or didn't want to do, and I never had one in poor enough condition that I felt comfortable with that. So I always had this idea to build this concept Batmobile, and that was the raw concept between what I wanted to build. The story goes back as far as the looks of it as a concept I drew on a skateboard a couple years ago. I drew this retro wide body, over-fendered monstrosity that kind of involved my love for the 80s and everything retro with this Batmobile concept. And that kind of went out of sight, out of mind a couple years ago. So I built an S10, an 89 S10, a little single cab short bed truck, a full LS swap. It's been a long 7-year project, and it was almost finished, and my wife had said that she wanted a car to drive to car shows with me. So I said, okay, what do you want? So she kept telling me and showing me all these imported cars, such as Range Rovers and Land Rovers and all this stuff from overseas that I really wasn't familiar with. And me knowing the car industry, I knew that if I imported one of these cars, it would be extremely hard for me to fix it, and I don't have a wheelhouse to know how to fix those. So one night we went out to eat. We were in the drive-through line, and we're kind of talking about that, and I open my phone and I see the first thing that pops up is this Mustang with a Barra engine in it, and I just lean over and I don't say anything other than, would you like a Fox body with an imported motor? And she said, oh, that'd be cool. So that gave me the green light to say go. So by the time I made it 3 miles home, I had already wired this guy a deposit on this car. So I get home and I say, guess what, it's coming. So I FaceTime the guy, and he shows me the car, and I'm like, okay, it's nighttime, I can't see much. Well, 7 o'clock that next morning, the guy had messaged me and said, hey, this thing's on a trailer and I'm driving 20 hours to you. I couldn't believe it. So when the car showed up, it was the biggest piece of junk you've ever seen. It was a junkyard find per se, and he was super proud, and I was super frustrated that it showed up in that condition. But hey, it is what it is, and I said, it is gonna be a project. And my wife came out and saw it, and she didn't say anything. She just walked back into the house, and resonated with me that I made a bad decision, but my kids did the same thing. They said, wow, another project, cool. And it wasn't supposed to be a project. It was told to me that the car was ready to go and looked good in photos and videos, and it absolutely was not. So it definitely wasn't what I was looking for when I set a project. And the Barra was in there, but the car barely ran and barely started, and I knew it was going to be pretty intense. So I quickly realized that it's not going to be this quick, easy project that I can just finish up and we'll go to Cars and Coffee on Sunday, trailing kids behind. But so what I pretty much did is I spent 3 months solid every night and weekends in the garage building this car and just putting it all together. I ended up having to strip the entire interior out. I had to replace every piece of weather stripping and molding, and the brakes were seized, so the brakes, the suspension, the whole car had to be rebuilt. And this whole time in mind, I had this Frankenstein car kind of built, mended with her idea to have this imported car. Well, as soon as it started coming together, I kind of had worked this plan on the side that it needed to have an identity. And at this point, I didn't think that Batmobile Frankenstein was the right move. So I looked to the wall and I saw that skateboard that I created a couple years back for an art project that encased kind of everything retro and synthwave. And I said, wait, that's the move. Let's create something that hits the internet and resonates with everybody and kind of puts this community of car people back together and reminds people of a different time. So in theory, I kind of took my career in motorsports marketing and advertising, graphic design, and my experience in car building and built this monstrosity and this image of a time machine that wasn't a DeLorean, but in fact a Fox body Mustang. So the look and color of the TimeFox was never set in stone. The drawing I did doesn't look exactly like it as far as colors, but I wanted to pull inspiration from all things 80s and retro and synthwave that I enjoy and I grew up remembering as a kid. So I talked to a lot of friends, I kind of threw out ideas, photos, concepts of raw color, and it ended up coming down to one of my best memories as a kid, and that was eating at Taco Bell, where I remember the colors and the look and the feel and the music and the commercials and everything involved reminds me of that. A lot of people say Solo Cup because at the time everything in the 90s were teal, purple, and white, the cool things at least. But to me, I would just think about being that little kid in the weekends and the VHSs and the friends and the hangouts and all that, and it really just evolved into making sure that the TimeFox's look was those colors, that feel, and gave people that sense of remembrance of those times when they looked at it. TimeFox has a 4.0 inline 6 cylinder from a Ford Falcon, which is from Australia. It's imported. That's what drew me originally to the car when I bought it, because I saw that engine sitting in there and I wasn't aware that it wasn't a household name. I was familiar with the Barra and the power and everything that came with the Barra and what was online, but I didn't know the significance of how rare that engine really was until the car was in my hands and I needed to learn that car as quick as possible. So I can't take any credit for the Barra being in the car, although that was an idea I had as one of the engines. It wouldn't have been my first choice, but it was already there. The complications of the Barra were quite large until I established a network of connections in Australia mostly to import parts and gain access to how to fix them, how to build them, what to do, what parts interchange, and how that works. That has been probably the biggest struggle with the car, having a different drivetrain that isn't easily accessible from just walking to the parts store and buying a part and putting it on the car. There's been a lot of R&D that go into the Barra community of the United States of finding what works, such as General Motors, steering, pumps, and different parts, alternators out of different cars, and what works here and there. Some parts are interchangeable. For the most part, most of the Barra components are imported. Thinking back, there were so many things about the TimeFox and the build that I didn't think were gonna work, and it kind of evolved as how the car looks today. There were so many pieces that needed to be done, and there was a gap here or there, or something was missing that I had to compensate for. And I just had to really think into my brain of like what would work, what could work, and what could kind of evolve a little idea into a bigger one. Such as the front bumper, which is one of the most talked about pieces of the car. When I got the car, it was again in poor condition and it needed a front bumper, but I had the opportunity to just replace the bumper or do something different. So I started thinking of the catalog in my head of what cars were similar in size and shape, and I immediately thought of a BMW E36 M3, and I said, I bet you that would fit. So I purchased a front bumper, and I kind of just sat there and worked it until it fit, modified the frame and kind of the bumper supports as well to fit that, and just kind of made it work. And then again, it didn't fit perfect, so I kind of grafted a third bumper to go around the outside to kind of mimic an external wide body to kind of make that work. Same thing goes for so many different parts of the chassis, such as the suspension and the over fenders and the suspension, and then the wing. I went through 3 different wings to see what I thought looked best, and it ended up with the Evolution Evo spoiler from a Mitsubishi Lancer, which has kind of got some love and some not love, but I think it really fits the look. Most of the exterior and interior modifications and inspiration came from, again, my love for the 80s as being a 90s kid, where VHS and BMX bikes and friends were such an importance. And I think so many people can resonate with that and remember what that was like. And I wanted to build that and put that to the car. So as much as I could at every detail, including the interior with the plaid seats, the Game Boy that is now a speedometer, the bag phone that still powers on. There's so many aspects of my love for the 80s and 90s that I wanted to put into this to bring everybody to that same location. When they looked at the car and thought of it, they didn't see just a wide-body Mustang or a big, loud turboed car. They thought of a friend they haven't called in a long time, their dad, their childhood, whether good or bad. I think that's part of what nostalgia brings to people is, you know, whether it was good or whether it's bad, it reminds them of that time, whether they wish it was good or it was good or it was bad or they wish it wasn't bad. It still makes them remember, and usually nostalgia is always a good thing. So my support for major motorsports companies such as Haltech and Deechworks have came on since the very start. When I first brought the cars out to its first showing, Cars and Coffee, I was lucky enough to hit the internet running, start an organic following, and one of the first people that reached out within the first couple of weeks was actually Haltech, as they are native to Australia and the Barra is from Australia. I got a lot of support and knowledge from those guys, and they've kind of been there since day one. Everybody else kind of fell in line as everything got bigger and the following got deeper, and everyone started to resonate with the car a little bit more. And I've got really lucky to partner with a bunch of amazing people from start to finish in the last year. And that's been extremely helpful to make neighbors in the United States, partners I never knew existed, as well as a lot of people overseas with support. We've been super fortunate to have people jump on board in major motorsports brands such as Haltech. Haltech is a native to Australia, such as the Barras from Australia. So the day we hit the internet running, we had Haltech reach out within that first week and want to support us being Barra in the United States. So they've been a major help from day one for the last year, every step of the way. They supplied an IC7 digital dash, an R3 Nexus ECU system, as well as all the wiring, the keypad, everything to maintain and plug and play that Barra and put it together. We've had Reversion Raceworks come in and help us with mounting the Haltech IC7 digital dash, the dash bezel as well. Deechworks, which is a fuel company out of Oklahoma, was able to help us with everything fuel related, which is injectors, fuel pump, filter, hoses, lines, fittings, you name it. They've been a super huge help with the build, and we really couldn't have done it without them. Stifler's Transmission Mounts was able to pair us with the correct universal mount that mounted the TKX with the Barra in the Fox body, which is a weird combination to work with, but they made it work. We have Dash Links, which does USB hardwired kits for a lot of our components, like our digital dash camera and stuff like that. Then we have two partners that have been super helpful in the whole thing, which is Barra the World, where they kind of supply the entire world with Barra parts. You can literally jump on their website and get a motor palleted to your house and have it there within 2 weeks. Know that it's reliable, customs is correct, and everything gets there. And then Hanlon Motorsports, they are an authorized TKX Tremec dealer. So that's where we went to get our Tremec TKX, our clutch and everything fitted for the Barra to make sure that it handles the power that it does. So the TimeFox following grew overnight, it feels like. The second that we put it out there, went to that Cars and Coffee, the car was barely running. I didn't have any headlights wired. I had not tested the car. I got it there. And by the time I got home, I actually had 1,000 followers on Instagram. I didn't think that that would have played out that way. Initially, my plan was to grow this online organic following that brought the community together. But from the second it left my driveway, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then by the time I got home, I decided to post a photo of the car on the internet and say, hey guys, check out what I built, because I had made a big plan not to do a build series. I know that that's a thing to show people the progress of a build, but everybody's attention span nowadays is getting so limited that I said, hey, like, I just want to build this thing in silence and then come out and say, hey, look at this, and everyone would in awe say, wow, like, where did this come from? How was it built? I don't want anybody to lead up to what this thing was. I just wanted it to be there. And that photo that I posted got 10,000 likes within a matter of hours, and it got super huge and super big. And then within the first week, I think we were clocking 5,000 or 6,000 Instagram followers, and it just continued to grow. And even though that was the plan, I stayed humble the whole time. I didn't want clout, I didn't want followers. That was not my intention, never has been, and it never will. I actually don't enjoy the online attention. I'm not that kind of guy. But being able to meet people from all over the world and talk to people about what the car makes them feel or what it makes them remembered, which is probably the biggest importance to me and my family, is probably the best part of this whole project. It's not, I love Fox bodies and I love this. The majority of the people, believe it or not, don't like Fox bodies and don't like Fords or Mustangs. It's just they say, my dad had this, or it reminds me of this, or my grandfather had this. And that's kind of what it does, is it brings people to that equal playing field of we're all humans. And at one point we shared like that time frame, whether that was the younger kids and their dads or their parents lived in that generation, or they lived there, or their kids lived in that generation. It kind of brings people back to that one even playing field, and we're all even. We're not rich, we're not poor, we're not good, we're bad, we're just there together. The moments that hit me the most as far as impact on social media, I kind of were every other day. Every other day I'd wake up with new messages, new followings, new partnership proposals, new adventures, and it really never stopped since day one. So I feel like there wasn't something that was super memorable about like a certain instance of it was this day that did this or this day. Eventually when we went on to win Dallas, Texas Hot Wheels show, that was the time that I teared up and said like, okay, like this is really like a real deal. There's followers, there's messages around the world. It was probably in that moment that I thought like, wow, this really worked out, and all this hard work has came to, really something. So far along this whole venture with the TimeFox over the last year, the biggest feat so far is going to be the Hot Wheels Legends Tour. Hot Wheels each year does a thing where they put out this big tour where they travel around the United States and different countries and put on these car shows, and each person's going to win each location, and then they're going to put them into a judging pool from the handful of winners, and it becomes a panel of judges that choose one car that resonates the most with everybody around the world and becomes its own Hot Wheel, as well as go into the Hot Wheel Hall of Fame. And I never once thought, even though I'm a Hot Wheels fan since a little kid and I'm a collector as well, that my car would ever become a Hot Wheel. But I said like, hey, let's forego a couple shows, enter in to win this, or enter in to be part of the show, not even win it. I just want to be there. And that was about 45, 50 days out from the show. So that gave us a little bit of time to get ready, because the car was only visually fit the bill. The drivetrain still wasn't ready 100% to be shown at that capacity. So we were luckily accepted into the show, and it gave us about 35-40 days. So at that point I said, okay, let's build something different. So I wanted to give something back to the community as well as be part of something else. And what that was is how to get the Barra into the United States and make it a more household name. So what I did is partner with this company out of Australia called Barra the World. They're an online resource to buy parts and import parts over. And they said they'd love to be part of this with me. So they helped me catalog an entire build. That's when I started lining up other people such as Stifler's, Hanlon Motorsports, and got in depth with Haltech about this plan. And everybody worked together to get me these parts as fast as possible. Within 28 days, I was able to bring the car into the garage, jack it up, tear the entire drivetrain down. And as parts came in, parts came off of the car. And I tried to film the whole documentary of diving into something I don't know, which is the Barra and the platform. And I had to learn stuff I've never learned in my motorsports career, what mates to what, building some internals, some parts I've never seen as well. So as parts showed up, we built the entire drivetrain, which includes a new vision of the drivetrain of the TimeFox, TKX transmission to hold the power, big turbo, high mount kit, intercoolers, rewired the whole car, new fuel system, kind of everything put together. And we made it down to tuning the car at about midnight the morning of the show. I needed to leave about 2:30 in the morning, and I was on a remote call with Australia tuning at about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning our time. I put the car on the ground, had barely got it started, and pulled it into the trailer. 10 foot into the trailer, I had a few issues, so I had to stop. So then I've got the car jacked up at 1:30 in the morning, getting it ready for this show. Made it in the trailer. I came back. I barely had time to leave. I had to go take a shower, jumped in the truck with my son, and we drove all the way to Dallas. I had to stop, take a few breaths, take a little nap, and we made it with 18 minutes to spare. So we pulled it to the show. I was one of the last cars they let into the show, got a good spot. And I was super thankful that we made it. Like, it wasn't about like, hey, we came here to win this show. It was about like 28 of the roughest days I've ever had of not sleeping, and my son being in the garage, sleeping in the car, rooting me on the whole way, and my wife taking care of my daughter, just to get me to this point that says like, I built a car, you know, pretty much full drivetrain, and got it to this point with 18 minutes to spare. So we just kind of chilled, relaxed. My son got to see the whole Hot Wheels event, and it was awesome. So at the end of the day, they get up to do their announcement, and we're like, hey, this would be so cool, but we had no idea that we would win, and we won. So they called us up in front of thousands of people. They gave a speech. They let my little son, which is 10 years old, give a speech to the crowd and just talk about it. And I never thought I'd make it to that point. So far, that's been the biggest draw of the whole show. You know, we took a nap in the parking lot as soon as it was over, because I hadn't slept. I had done 2 all-nighters up to that point, so I was super tired. And you know, I didn't even know how the car made it across the parking lot. So I was really thankful my skills pulled together, and you know, everybody back home was rooting for us, and we really pulled it off. So that's been the biggest feat of the TimeFox so far. At this point, the TimeFox means as much to me as, I wouldn't say one of my kids, but I would say it's become part of my identity. You know, it really started out as this love-hate relationship of me trying to make a financial recovery from buying this junkyard car that I'd never seen. And, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, everybody's disappointed in me again for buying a weird project and starting this and that. But, you know, I had a vision, and I saw it through, and I kind of molded this piece of clay to become this car and this identity, and it's kind of overtaken just a group effort of my family, and it really is like one of our pets at this point. Like, we love it, we talk about it, it's another one of the family members at this point. It's created friendships, and at this point, like, it's irreplaceable to me to become, you know, a part of my life. Not just like, hey, it was a car I owned at one point, but it was this giant creation of not only something we built and we own, but something that has brought a community together and like brought us friendships across the world and united so many people. I feel TimeFox has been super influential with so many different people, and that's not just my perception of influence, but it's more so people reaching out and saying what the car's done for them, what they mean. I never thought at any point that, you know, I could be an inspiration to anybody for building a car, because I'm not a professional car builder. I've been around it, but I never thought that I would hear that from anybody. And I've got praise from just the grassroots guy to the professional builder. And everyone really likes so many different parts of the car that, you know, were more so of like a, how could I do this to me? Not like, you know, I'm gonna do this for a purpose. You know, the E36 bumper, the holes in the front bumper to feed some air to the car, the spoiler, the aero, the molded wide body, any of that stuff. It really wasn't a plan for me to influence anybody, just kind of build this thing that like, hey, this will work and this will work with this, and just a building block. And you know, it's really fortunate to have people say like, you know, I was some sort of inspiration in this build. In the future, I think TimeFox is almost capped out for modifications. I think at this point, like, we have a few suspension plans, such as air ride suspension to replace the really nice coilovers to give it a better ride, be able to lift it to get it into the trailer. We are working on the interior right now, which does include some plans for an air ride setup that kind of has some throwback to bring that retro interior exterior together. As well as I might change the wheels up a little bit, but I think that's it. It's right where it needs to be. My advice for anybody that's building a car is going to be, you know, just do what you want to do. Don't listen to anybody, and I think that's the biggest key here. Is I took a chance, built something that debatably I thought people were going to laugh at. You know, it's pink, it's blue, it's teal, it's a Fox body, it's got BMW, it's got Mitsubishi, it's got all this stuff thrown together. And, you know, I anticipated people to laugh and make fun, but, you know, it didn't work out that way. And, you know, if people don't like it, then that's on them, really. Just, you know, life is all about how you feel. It's really only about how you feel. You could feel good driving, you know, a very poorly kept car. You could drive a Lamborghini and feel the same way. So perception is just like nostalgia. It's just how you feel in the moment, and, you know, just do what you want to do, build what you want to build. The lessons I've built with building TimeFox is, number one, if you buy a car sight unseen, don't do that. That's not a good idea. But other than that, you know, just learn, listen, don't act like you know it all, reach out. There's a lot of people in the community that are willing to help and talk about how something's done and give you help. That's probably the biggest advice I can give to anybody that's, you know, wanting to learn anything. What I hope people take away from this build is that they just, you know, don't lack inspiration, don't lack creativity, be you, put parts together, buy stuff off the shelf, whatever works, make it work for you. Don't make it work for everybody else. Sometimes things don't fit together. Sometimes they're not meant to fit together, but, you know, if you can make them work, then you know, just be yourself. So initially the car was just a result of a poor financial decision fueled by hope. My family saw it as, you know, another financial mistake that I needed to recover and spend months recovering from. And it turned into this renowned piece of machinery that just brought everybody together, as well as my family. My son stayed with me in the garage majority of both processes of the build to help me. My daughter helped me, my wife helped run the social media and get back to each and every person, and just continue to build this camaraderie of putting people together and putting this plan together to unite the car community. And now everybody enjoys it, and they ended up seeing that my vision from the start ended up playing itself out, and they got to see that, which is, you know, it means a lot to me as a father and a husband to say like, hey, I had this vision and we all brought it to life, and not only brought a community together, but my family together as well. To close this out, it really was my plan fueled by a plan brought to the world. I was able to expose my ideas and my dream for this car to the world, and it took on by storm and filled so many people with inspiration and hope, or a dream or an idea or an aspiration to build something similar. And all of my sponsors that came on, and everybody that was involved with this, from one like to one share to one message, meant the world to me. I wish that I could create hundreds of thousands of friends, because each and every person I've high-fived, waved at, said thank you to, or I've replied to a comment, means the world to me, and I would be best friends with each and every one of those people if I had enough of me to give. And we really couldn't have done it without anybody that was involved at any point that had any part of this. And the Hot Wheels venture has been amazing so far to, win or lose. We are a part of it, and that's something that will live on with my legacy as a person, as a dad, as a friend, as a business guy. It's what's going to live on in all of us.